we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement, Freud, and Geraldine Jones in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, it's my pleasure to tell you that these four are going to try and speak for just a minute, if they can, on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject if they can. And if one of the others thinks they're guilty of doing this, they will challenge by pressing their buzzer, and if I agree with the challenge or disagree, they will gain points or give them away, as the case may be. So let us begin this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, a delightful subject for you. Romulus and Remus. Can you speak for 60 seconds about those two, starting now?
Well, I'm not an expert on your actual Roman mythology, but these two, I think, were brothers who were suckled by a she-wolf. And then they had a most terrible row, and one slew the other. And then he went to the Sabine women, and they had this rape. Now, the idea was because he had no women. That was the idea, so you see. Oh, I repeat.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Repetition of idea.
Yes, and I agree with the challenge, Derek. You gain a point, and you take over the subject, and there are 30 seconds left for Romulus and Remus, starting now.
Well, when Romulus and Remus wanted to decide on which hill to build the new city, they went one to the Aventine Hill and one to the Palatine Hill.
Clement, Freud, you challenge. Why?
Repetition of hills.
Yes, alas there was. It was getting so interesting, too. Clement, Freud, I agree with the challenge, so you gain a point, and you take over the subject with 22 seconds left for Romulus and Remus, starting now.
The mother of Romulus and Remus was possibly the first woman to have taken a fertility drug, which is why these two were twins and not brothers, as has been previously mentioned. They built the city of Rome on a number of geographical protrusions.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation. He said they built it, and in fact only Romulus built it.
That is perfectly correct. It was only Romulus who built
I didn't mean...
You did say they
By
built
they,
it.
I meant Romulus' workforce.
You'll notice that Clement Freud has a very clever way of trying to get out of it. I agree with Geraldine's challenge. She gets a point, and there are 5 seconds left for Romulus and Remus. Geraldine, starting now.
My friend has 2 sons, and she's called one of them Romulus and one Remus. They both live...
Kenneth Williams has challenged you. Why?
Deviation. Well, now, this is about Romulus, it's not about her friends and these sons.
Well, Kenneth, you see, it's
She's
perfectly...
just dragging in a lot of private reminiscing.
Kenneth, I think you're being very clever, just getting in before the whistle goes at 60 seconds, because the subject is Romulus and Remus, and it is perfectly possible that someone could christen their 2 sons Romulus and Remus, so Geraldine has another point, and she has half a second left for Romulus and Remus, starting now.
They both absolutely...
That whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that particular moment gets another point. In this case, it was Geraldine Jones, so she has a commanding lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is famous last words. 60 seconds on that, starting now.
Perhaps the most famous last words are, "This is the first time I've ever played Russian roulette." But there are... But during the war, there were a number of occasions when people looked into the sky and said, "Is that really a bomb?" Or, "I had no idea this gun was loaded," which must also count. My favorite last words written on the tombstone of a head waiter were, "God finally caught his eye," which seems to me to express very well a job...
Geraldine Jones, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. Well, you might hesitate after that last remark in this game. So, Geraldine, I agree with the challenge, and you take a point and the subject. 23 seconds left. Famous last words, starting now.
The thing about famous last words is that usually they're invented after someone great has died by someone else, as, for example, the best, which is, "I was in the right," as you end up in the middle of a...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was, yes, only just.
Little.
But there we are. It has hesitation. Derek, you gain a point and take over the subject. 7 seconds for famous last words, starting now.
My Auntie Mabel, as she lay on her deathbed, said, "Goodbye to all of you. I'm so sorry to leave every one of my dear friends here."
Short challenge.
But at the end of that round, Geraldine still has a lead of 2 over all the others. Geraldine, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is my opinion. Can you tell us in gay, extravagant terms all about your opinion for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is without doubt the nicest subject I've ever had, because whatever I do, I can't be buzzed for deviation, since everything I'm going to say is my opinion. Ian Messiter's orange shirt suits his complexion far better than his purple one. Every single week, Kenneth Williams eclipses us all. I think Paradise Lost is the most awful poem in the English language. When you sit opposite people in trains, I wish they'd smile at you automatically and not leave you staring like a stuffed duck. It's absolutely appalling that we have to spend so much time reading boring newspapers, and I should be very happy if I never heard anything at all of what was going on in the world as a whole. I think that this theatre is particularly ugly, although I like the way it's filled with nice, smiling people who laugh.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation. Repetition of smiling.
Utterly ungallant. We were loving every minute of it. Geraldine gets another point, and there are 20 seconds left for my opinion, Geraldine, starting now.
I like to eat, and I love doing absolutely nothing at all. I think it's a great pity that people feel the need to do things and can't just sit looking idly into space, not even bothering their heads with boring things like how much...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition of boring.
Yes, you did say boring once before, Geraldine. So there we are. Derek gets a point and takes over the subject with 8 seconds left for my opinion, starting now.
In my opinion, there's nothing nicer in the whole wide world than to go to San Francisco on a Tuesday morning in Lent, and there to stand on the bridge and look...
As Derek Nimmo rather cleverly got in again once, just before the whistle went, he gains that extra point. And so we come back to you, Kenneth. Will you speak on hesitation for 60 seconds, starting now?
This usually occurs when there is difficulty on the part of the speaker in finding the right word for the particular situation, or it could be caused by the machinery of the brain lacking synchronization with the process of articulation. He who hesitates, Shakespeare says, is lost. Arnold says we falter on the threshold of this life. Now both indicate, therefore, that a positive action is the only one of which you will find a universal kind of approval in the shape of a great man.
Derek Nimmo has managed to challenge you. Why?
Could we have an interpreter?
I think
He's got all his fans out front, that's quite obvious. He brings them with him.
Yes, yes. I think that's horrid of you, Derek. You could, as long as you keep going, you can change your voice as often as you like, as Ken has demonstrated more than once before.
He wasn't saying that. He said he needed an interpreter, as though what I was saying was inexplicable.
Yes, I understood every single word.
Cool.
And I loved it all. Ken.
Nice, wasn't it?
It was lovely, absolutely. And there are 8 seconds left. No, 7 seconds left for you to continue on hesitation, starting now.
This is not only verbal, there can be a physical hesitation, a tentative quality.
Well, Kenneth deserves that round of applause because he not only started with the subject, but he also finished with it. And sometimes I think, having been on the panel once, it's more difficult to start again after you've been interrupted than to go for a
That
full
is
60.
true.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. You lose your intellectual flow.
Yes.
Yes, and I've lost her once or twice before.
But the thing is, Kenneth, you have so many flows, you can pick them all up
Well, that
again.
is sweet of you to say so.
There
Lovely
we
chairman,
are.
very nice.
So,
chairman.
Clement, it's your turn to begin the next round, and we carry on with this idea, repetition. So can you talk for just a minute on repetition, starting now?
Repetition means repeating what you have already said, speaking again a sentence which you have previously uttered, or saying once more something which has already come from your mouth. Yet another time, you might well...
Geraldine, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. He was so keen on his repetition, he fumbled on hesitation. But I thought that was a wonderful dissertation saying the same thing in 3 or 4 different ways. Marvellous. Geraldine, you take a point, and there are 41 seconds for repetition starting now.
Although repetition is, of course, on this particular game taboo, it can be terribly useful because by dint of it, you can learn things. Who would ever have learned to count if it hadn't been the number of times that they'd actually spent in going over their tables, or even learning the alphabet? I have gone over my alphabet millions of times.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
2 alphabets. Repeat.
Yes, and also going over. So, Clement, you get another point, and you have 23 seconds left for repetition starting now.
It is generally thought that if you eat a lot of dried beans or other matter of vegetable substance, you regurgitate or belch, which is known as repeating in polite circles.
Kenneth Williams' wife, you challenged.
Deviation. I mean, this is just a lot of vulgarity. Are we descending into the realms of vulgarity?
Yes, we are. Because, you see, he hasn't actually deviated from the subject of repetition.
Well, if that's the tone you want your game
No,
to...
no, it's Clement Freud who's setting the tone. I have nothing to do with that. He's talking. But from your challenge, he gains another point, and there are 8...
I wish I'd never done it.
There are 8 seconds left for repetition starting now.
There are many who feel that such sounds emanating from a human throat are vulgar and devious, but it is an involuntary thing. No one...
And once again, somebody started with the subject and, in spite of interruptions, finished with it. Clement Freud, who now is equal in the lead with Derek Nimmo at the end of that round. Derek Nimmo, we're now on to deviation. And you've all done so well on the subjects which this game is concerned with. Can you speak about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Deviation is the last named article that we can be challenged for in this game. And I would like to say that I think it is very difficult indeed to do this, really. But you have to apply yourself very carefully. As Shakespeare did not say, he who deviates is lost when writing to Mr. W.H. And it's a very good thing he didn't say that, actually. Could have been very devious if he had, when you come to think about it, rather.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation from his former accent.
Yes, well, that was true, but he hasn't deviated from the subject on the card, has he? So he's still on a deviation, and there are 26 seconds left for the subject, Derek, starting now.
It is sometimes, of course, taken in the sexual sense, which is rather very unpleasant. Because what we do not want on this program is rudery of any kind. It has been shown so many times by the people opposite.
Kenneth Williams' wife, you challenge.
This is very positive indeed. It's nothing to do with deviation.
What do you say?
What he's doing now is advocating an absolutely positive policy. It has nothing to do with deviation.
I am deviating from the subject, so therefore it is deviation. You can't challenge it for deviation.
Derek, you have helped me out of a dilemma by admitting that you've deviated from the subject. Kenneth Williams gets a point, and he takes over the subject. With 15 seconds left for deviation, starting now.
I know nothing about this subject. I really feel...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Out of his own lips he is condemned.
Yes, but he can still know nothing about it, but manage to speak for 60 seconds or less on it. So he gets another point, and there are 11 seconds left in this case for deviation, Kenneth, starting now.
To stray, so to speak, from the straight and narrow. Something I never do. So, I must have gone into the lead there, Nick. I've gone into the lead.
You've gone into a very commanding 3rd place.
Oh, dear.
Alongside Geraldine Jones, and you are only just behind Clement Freud, who is 2 points behind Derek Nimmo, who's still in the lead. Geraldine, will you begin the next round for us? Old Lang Syne. Can you talk about Old Lang Syne for 60 seconds, starting now?
I believe that Old Lang Syne is Scottish. It certainly doesn't recognisably be English. And I can never really understand why it's necessary to hold hands crossways. I think it's very nice to hold them
Oh, Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
What hesitation, really.
Derek, you're right. You have a point. 47 seconds for Old Lang Syne, starting now.
What is more lovely in Edinburgh on New Year's Eve than to stand in a great circle with your closest friends around you and sing, "Let old acquaintance be forgot for the sake of Old Lang Syne," which caused me the old times things. It's terribly charming.
Geraldine, why have you challenged?
Deviation, the first line isn't let old acquaintance.
No,
be
it
forgot,
isn't.
but less
That's what I
maybe.
sing.
Yes, but you wouldn't sing that in Edinburgh, I'm sure. So, Geraldine gets the
would.
point. You might, but the others wouldn't. They would be the predominant ones. So, 32 seconds for you, Geraldine, on Old Lang Syne, starting now.
The fact that the only way the English can indulge their nostalgia is by pinching a Scottish song indicates to me that the English are rather...
Derek, why have you
Repetition of
challenged?
English.
What's that? Oh, yes, there was a couple of Englishes. What a
And
pity.
one in the previous
So,
go.
27 seconds for you, Derek, on Old Lang Syne, starting now.
What I really like is that when you all run into the middle and bump in the centre. I think it's terribly nice. And you all go...
Kenneth, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He's discussing physical gymnastics, not old lang
You've done it.
Well, the thing is, Kenneth, when you do Old Lang Syne, you often do run the middle and bump into each other. All right.
But I want to talk, and I won't get in if I don't challenge.
You've had a very good go on hesitation, completely through on your own with one interruption and on deviation.
Wow.
But you get a bonus point for cleverness.
Oh, that's
yes,
nice.
lovely.
Good.
So 23 seconds left, Derek, with you on Old Lang Syne, starting now.
I once went to Trinidad. When I got there was a little jelly baby on the keep.
Clement, why have you challenged?
Deviation's got nothing to do with Old Lang
I
Syne.
can't see what it's got to do with Old Lang Syne.
Jelly babies
Right.
on the key.
Yes, I see. All right, I gave Clement a chance to justify. Can you very rapidly?
Yes, of course I can. It happened to be New Year's Eve at the time. I took the jelly baby with me to my New Year's Eve party. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no, you
Why do you think
qualified
I
it far
start
too
on the
late.
subject?
You qualified it far too late. Clement Freud has a point. 15 and a half seconds for Old Lang Syne, Clement, starting now.
This is a Scottish national song which I like to sing in C sharp minor, and there is a long-playing record of me performing this very feat in the Kelvin Grove Hall to the left of Shettleston in the city of Glasgow in Scotland.
It depends which way you're looking. It could be to the right of Shettleston.
I was drunk.
So anyway, as you were speaking, Clement, when the whistle went, you gain an extra point, but you're still 2 points behind Derek Nimmo, who is still in the lead. Clement, will you begin the next round? The subject is gags. Can you talk about gags for 60 seconds, starting now?
Who was that lady I saw you with last night? That wasn't. It was.
He can't remember the oldest gag in
I
the
couldn't
business.
repeat lady.
Can't repeat it.
Oh, of course, yes, of course. So, Kenneth, you challenged.
Well, I show hesitation.
Oh, yes, indeed, you're absolutely right, yes. And you take up the subject of gags. And no doubt about it. So, there are 47 seconds left for gags, Kenneth, starting now.
These can, of course, refer to obstructions which are placed deliberately into people's mouths, or it can refer to a kind of
Geraldine,
humorous...
why have you challenged?
Repetition of refer.
Yes, she did say
She's
refer.
very sharp, isn't she?
And now there are 40 seconds left for gags. Geraldine, with you, starting now.
Gags is a wonderfully expressive word for a rather bad joke because the word itself has a sort of...
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged.
Deviation. It's never been established that gags means a rather bad joke.
No, they can be good jokes
That
as
can be
well.
extremely
Yes.
good.
So, Kenneth, you take over the subject with 34 seconds left. Gags starting now.
The best one I ever heard was when this fellow came on and said, "I got a pound of meat at Covent Garden for only fourpence." He said, "Mutton." He said, "No, it was rotten." And it always makes me laugh. God, it's a marvellous gag. But of course, Geraldine Jones probably wouldn't agree with me. There, you see, she establishes that her humour is on a much
Geraldine, why
higher
have you
plane.
challenged?
Well, deviation, much as I like being talked about, it's not relevant to gags.
Well, I think it is, because you've just been talking about gags. It was arising out of what you said that Kenneth's now going on about it. So
Can I
Kenneth
have a
gets
point
another
for
point.
cleverness? Because I've never had one.
I can only afford to give you one because the score is so tight. Everyone is very, very close at this moment. Kenneth, no, but Kenneth also gets a point. I just give him one because she asked for it and she's never asked before. She's just got an extra bonus point and she can have it with everybody's love.
Could we have?
No, you can't. You've had too many. You've had too many.
Oh.
What about you, Derek? Yes, all right. You didn't. Right, so there we are. Kenneth. 12 seconds left for gags, starting now.
I was once bound and gagged by some horrible bullies in the army. I, of course, was a young stripling, pale and weak. I was not
why are you
robust.
challenged?
What?
Why? Clement.
Deviation.
Why?
They don't take pale, young, weak striplings in the army.
They took me, I was B2 in the army. I got the oath slip to prove it. I was B2 in the army.
B2?
B2 for blood, it was my blood. I haven't got the corpuscles. No, my corpuscles.
But you'll have all
were
the blood rushing in a minute.
Yes, my phagocytes were rotten.
Well, calm your phagocytes, your blood, and whatever else you
I've
have.
got tired hormones, Nick. They are very tired. They're dragging round my ankles, love.
Before you lay your medical history.
What?
I said before you lay your medical history bare before this audience and all the listeners as well.
Do I win the challenge or does he win?
You don't win it. I'm awarding it to
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Because I agree that you can be B2 and still be in the army.
Indeed,
Yes,
indeed.
yes. Not that so there we are. 2 seconds for gags. No, 1 second for gags. Kenneth, starting now.
Oh, well, would that I had one in my...
So, Kenneth's blood kept him in at the end. So he gained an extra point as well, which means he's got quite a few points at the end of that round, which puts him equal in second place with Clement, and they're trailing only 3 points behind Derek.
Oh, is there a chance we'll catch up?
Yes, a chance you might win. It's still anybody's game. Derek, it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject is anything. Can you talk about anything for just a minute, starting now?
Very kind of the chairman of this program to ask me to talk about anything. All the rest of this program I've been having...
Clement, Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of Freud.
I know.
Yes, indeed, yes. Clement's got a point, and he's got the subject. 52 seconds for anything, starting now.
Every summer weekend, you may go into a park and watch cricket, which is performed between...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
I've not the slightest idea. I really don't know. I didn't mean to challenge. It was a funny, curious reflex action of my thumb that made it go doodle-doodle.
I get a
I
point?
have no idea. Give him a point.
Well, I'm afraid I have to.
Yes,
It's the pure
very well.
tension of the situation.
I'm so sorry.
Clement gets another point. He creeps up a little. 46 seconds left for anything, Clement, starting now.
My daughter has a poodle who is called Polly, and at one time had a dachshund who was known as Suki. And these two animals, in their lifetime, had an astonishingly happy relationship. One day, one of them would rush...
Geraldine, why have you challenged?
A repetition of one.
One day,
One day,
Yes,
one of
one
them.
day. I'm afraid at this particular game they're all being very sharp and keen, so I have to give it on small words like that. Geraldine, you get a point and the subject. 21 seconds for anything, starting now.
I have always lived on the assumption that anything is better than nothing. In other words, if someone comes to me and says, either you can have a pound of sweets or you can have nothing, then of course I would take the...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Repetition of nothing.
Yes, the last there was, so nothing gets you a point, Derek, and the subject. Anything. 11 seconds left, starting now.
I was walking over the mountain of Helvellyn, and I saw an ice cream cornet balanced on a rock. I picked it up and licked it with my tongue. It was very sweet.
Clement, why have you challenged?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, don't know.
He said I 4 times, which seemed... I mean, if you're going
It
to get...
seemed a very
if you're going to
good
give it on one, you might as well give it on I.
No, not in this particular
Really?
case.
Oh, let's give
no.
him another point.
No, there's some of the audience might
Yes,
think
they
so,
like-
no.
yes, let's
No,
give
you
them-
were being very clever. You
No, I
know there's
wasn't
only
being clever
about
at
2
all.
seconds to go because you saw Ian Messiter put his whistle in his mouth and you thought you'd try and get in somehow or other. And I'm afraid I'm not going to allow it on I, so Derek Nimmo gets that point, which won't make any difference to the final result, and he has 2 seconds left, starting now.
And he's a lovely whistler, Ian Messiter.
So, well tried everybody in the last round, but the final result is as it was at the end of the previous round. Geraldine Jones was in 4th place, only 1 point behind Kenneth Williams. Kenneth was in 3rd place, 2 points behind Clement, Freud, and Clement was 4 points behind this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. and go right up to the end. That, I'm afraid, is all we have time for. It's the end of this particular edition of Just a Minute. And from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.